Hi, this is Glenn Crooks, radio commentator for New York City FC, joined today by the sporting director for New York City FC, David Lee. And we are so happy to be able to take supporters' questions throughout this interview. David, welcome.
Hey, Glenn, how are you?
I'm fine and really appreciate the opportunity to go through some things for you so that the supporters and get a good feel for what's happening behind the scenes with the sporting director for New York City FC. But you attained that position when Claudio Reyna departed for Austin FC. So what's this first 2 years of being the sporting director, being the guy, what's that been like?
Yeah, so I think I've been about 16, 17 months now. When I took on the role, I certainly didn't have global pandemic on my list of challenges that I was expecting to face in my first year, but I was really proud of 2020 and particularly how our players, staff, academy, everybody handled what we were dealt with to get games back, to get players playing again. And so it's been a really challenging year for a lot of reasons, but I think we were all very grateful we got to do what we love last year when so many people were stuck at home for so long, and we had the opportunity to come back and play games and work, and that was something that was really good for us. So it's certainly been a challenge, but we're excited for 2021 and hopefully kind of end of COVID as soon as possible, and we can get back to a level of normalcy again.
Your head coach, Ronnie Deila, is beginning his second season, but what a way to come over from Europe and get involved in MLS during this pandemic year and all the distractions and the different things and challenges he had to deal with. He's a bit more settled in, as is the team under his guidance. What's your assessment of Ronnie Deila's performance?
Yeah, as you say, it was a very, very tricky situation to walk into, playing 2 games against Columbus away, the MLS Cup winners, and Toronto away, who finished second in the Eastern Conference before COVID shut down, as well as games obviously against San Carlos and Tigres. I'm really encouraged by what we saw, particularly towards the end of the season. You know, I think everybody knows we had a very difficult start to the year. But, you know, when we came back and we were in what was more like a normal season, playing home and away, I think the results were really good. I think we ended up kind of second overall when we just look at that kind of 18-game span. And I think the team's performances were really strong. Ronnie's a fantastic leader. I'm really looking forward to seeing the players who've been here now with the club last year and the new players that we've brought in and will bring in, develop under him and work with him. I think it's a really exciting time. And we know we had a difficult start, but when I look at, we played 23 games last year. I think we had more points after those 23 games than we did in 2019. Unfortunately, the first 5 or 6 games, we just didn't have a long enough runway to recover that and finish where we would have wanted to. Certainly weren't going into the season wanting to finish 5th in the East, but given the difficult start and shortened season, we had to play at an almost perfect rate the last 18 games to be able to finish where we did. And so I was pleased with the end of the season, and I'm looking forward to 2021.
All right, I'm not going to ask you about the progress of the new stadium, but I do want to ask you about playing home matches at Red Bull Arena. From a sporting standpoint, what is the impact on the team competitively to win matches when they're playing 8 of their 17 home games across the river in New Jersey?
It's not ideal for us to play games anywhere but Yankee Stadium. We would love to play all of our games at Yankee Stadium. That's what we would like to do from the sporting side. One thing I've been really impressed with our players over the last years since I've been at the club is we have to control what we can control. And, you know, we can't control which stadiums are available. Our job is whatever stadium we are asked to play in, that we put a team and a product and are competitive and go to win the game. I think we had a good record at Red Bull Arena last year. Our players adapted really well. They've been fantastic at that. I will hope the same happens again. And the job doesn't change. You know, we have to turn up and be ready to compete and win whichever stadium we play in.
Well, David, you've agreed to field some questions from supporters. Here's the first one from Steve Fields. Ronnie inherited a team that has been playing almost exclusively in a one-striker formation, either flanked by wingers or with wide midfielders since the Vieira era. However, Ronnie's tactical history at prior clubs shows a preference for 2-striker formations. As the club recruits more players in the Deila era, are you looking to recruit tactically flexible players capable of functioning in both types of formations?
Yeah, great question. So the simple answer is Yes, tactically flexible players, whether that's based on being able to play a number of positions or being able to adapt to our style of play, are incredibly important. I think Ronnie has traditionally played in a bunch of formations, but also in 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1 in how we typically build our squads, not just in New York, but across City Football Group. And as all of our fans will know, we have a very specific style of play that we're looking to build and work with. And we try and identify coaches who can come in and advance that style of play and show a very similar style that we've seen. And so I think Ronnie's shown that he can do that. But ultimately, from my chair, I want to be able to provide players that can deliver that. And I think we've seen that in New York too. We obviously in 2019 in particular, we had Tati and Ebba. We were both in fantastic form, kind of right through the middle of the year, and we played a number of games. Can think back to the Red Bull home game, particularly where we played both Tati and Ebba up front together with Dome in a 4-4-2, as far as I remember, and had a really, really good performance. So I think we've tried to have different options in the squad, and that will be the same moving forward.
A majority of the team has returned, and there are some acquisitions which we're going to talk about, but a couple of popular players, Alex Ring, your former captain, and Rado Matarrita are both gone. They left during the offseason. Why was it necessary for the overall structure of the squad to make those moves?
Firstly, I'd say for both players, like the supporters, they were incredibly important players for us as a team. Remember working to bring both of those players to New York, Mata in the 2016 season and Alex in 2017. Both played an absolutely pivotal role in the club we've been over the last 4 to 5 years. And Mata was somebody who we identified really as a young, talented player in Costa Rica, and was one of the first players in that kind of bracket that we really went out to try and recruit and bring to our club. And Alex, slightly different, 24, 25, just entering his peak, somebody that we felt could come in and make a real impact very, very quickly into the team. And both were incredibly important for us, and certainly not easy decisions when you think about having to move players on. But we have to take a view of what the squad looks like. And for the last few years, really, we'd tried as best as we could to keep the core of the team together, as much of the kind of core 14, 15 players in our team together, even making some decisions to bring in some allocation money into the squad, like a Jonathan Lewis trade, for example, which was really to ensure that we could keep that group together that had been together for a number of years and we felt was really close to winning a title and winning a trophy. As we ended last year, I think there was a couple of factors that really went into that decision. One was we probably felt there was more change needed in the squad than there had been in prior years to help set the team up for success. And so in order to bring new players into MLS and the salary cap world we live in, that means that some players have to depart. That was an important decision, important factor in the decision. And we got what we believe are really fair and fantastic deals for both Ring and Mata that has helped the salary cap situation, where we can go out and bring the new players in that we've brought in so far, and the flexibility it gives us to continue bringing in new players as we enter into the season.
All right, let's get back to a supporter's question, this time Sam Harris, and this is related to your response. How is the pandemic affecting the club's ability to bring in new players? Globally, things are all over the place.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's probably a question I've been asked most often over the last few months. And the simple answer is it's having a tremendous impact on the ability to sign players. From even simple things as being able to go and scout and meet players in person is obviously not possible, or is severely limited at best. We found particularly in the January transfer window that there were clubs who wanted to keep hold of some players until the summer, where they felt like the valuations of their players would be more back to normal, which then meant we weren't able to acquire them. And the last thing that has been a really big impact is for players individually. When we've spoken to some players and certain players, is taking a big move to the United States or MLS has been more challenging than it has been in prior years, because you don't know if you move whether you're going to be able to see family if you don't live in the United States, and how travel has impacted the ability to acquire players. So I think we've seen across MLS a slower than normal transfer window, and the pandemic has an absolutely massive part in that. I think we're starting to see that pick up across the league now. And I think also tangentially related to the pandemic, but the delayed start of the season also changed how and when teams were looking to recruit players. And in January and February, where there wasn't certainty on when the season would start, now having that certainty has allowed teams to be a little bit more effective in trying to pinpoint the players that they want to bring in and the time that they want to sign those players.
All right, another question, this time from John Levin. What position is the greatest area of need for the club at this moment?
The stock answer that I'll probably always give to these questions is we are looking in every position at all times to try and improve the team, whether that's in any transfer window. Where most of our focus is right now is on the attacking area of the field. It's no secret to say that I think we are probably a player or two light in that area of the field, and that continues to be a big focus. I think we're really pleased with the additions we've made in defence and midfield, but I would say most of the focus right now is on looking at attacking players, and Thiago Andrade was hopefully the first of a couple of additions across the 2021 season where we'll add in the attacking areas.
Yeah, well, that leads to the next question from Andrea Gorin about Maxi Morales and one of the positions where there appears to be a lack of depth, the number 10, the attacking midfielder. Andrea says, Maxi is getting older and is unlikely to play as much as he used to. Mitri is gone. There's talk of Valentin being sold, Tati, and Eber is injury prone. When can we expect one or more signings to beef up our front line and ensure we increase creativity? Are you planning on using a DP slot for this objective? You mentioned Thiago Andrade, who was signed recently, the 20-year-old Brazilian. What else do you have in store?
Maxi's such an important player for us and had an unfortunate knee injury last year. I think he's looked really sharp in preseason and hopefully can stay and remain fit as much as possible. We know how important he is to our team. Eber, again, a really unfortunate injury last year with an ACL, and so we're excited to see where he is in his recovery. He's been doing his rehab in Brazil, but is another hugely important and impactful player for us, as we know we've seen over the last couple of years. But as I said previously, I think we are looking for another one or two players in the attacking area of the pitch, both to add quality and depth into that area, and I'm looking forward to adding those players. I think we want to sign the right players. That's first and foremost the most important thing for us always, is to sign the right players. And then the second most important is to get them as soon as we can. I'm certainly hopeful that we'll have the couple of new additions that we'd like to make as soon as possible. But I'd also say that we have a tremendous amount of belief in the players that we have, and the young players who have developed and improved and are ready to take on even bigger roles than they've had in the past, and the players that are still in the team from Ishmael and Tati and Maxi and Jesus, new player in Andres and Thiago when he arrives. So I think there's some real talent in our attacking line as it stands that we feel really, really good about. But if we can add another couple of players that can add impact and improve that area, we absolutely will.
Same theme. Everyone's concerned about this attacking side of things, including Graham Smith. He asks, NYCFC has been screaming out for a +10 goal scoring forward for most of last season and got very lucky the season before. All our existing forwards are similar +5 goals top guys, except maybe Eber, who we just talked about. Without such a player, there is no way the team will progress. Do you agree? And what is being done to address this team weakness? So, similar question for sure, but you can see the concerns of those who support the club.
Yeah, so I wouldn't agree that we don't have 10+ goal players on our roster right now. I think Tati had 11 goals in his age 20 season, and in the shortened season, I think he had 6 last year, and probably in a full year would have had 10. I think Ishmael's had a 10+ goal season. We saw a better goal return from Jesus last year as well. So I absolutely think we have players who are capable of being 10, 15+ goal scorers on the team right now. I really do. And I think we sometimes underestimate the development of players. Somebody like Tati, for example, who has developed tremendously over the last couple of years, and has had a fantastic preseason, and somebody that we're really excited about. And so every team in the world is looking for a 20-goal-a-season striker. We would love to add more competition and depth and quality in the attacking end of the field. And if we can find the right player, we will do so. But I do think we have players who are capable of scoring goals, and if our team is structured in the right way and we create chances, I'm confident in the players that we have. But I think we'll also have some new players coming during the season that will help us in the attacking area of the pitch as well.
David, Roman Lorenzo, he's got a question. Will we see the 2 DP slots filled in the next transfer window? And are we going to see more South Americans on the squad soon?
Yeah, so I think this question was asked before we announced Thiago. So I think that's one new South American player. We look all over for talent and we want to find the best talent, whether it be in South America or Europe. We know there's a huge amount of talent in South America. We've been fortunate enough to have some of that talent on our team over recent years, and I'm sure we will continue to have that moving forward. In terms of the DP spots, yes, our intention is to add and fill DP spots as soon as we possibly can with the right players.
Next question comes from Bjorn Bellenbaum. Regarding new players signings, the team used to find value in the draft. Kyrie Shelton, Jack Harris, and Jonathan Lewis. And by signing players within MLS, Ben Sweat, Tony Rocha, Sean Johnson. Now the focus seems to be mostly on homegrowns and players coming from abroad. Can you talk about the club's approach, if it's changed in that regard?
I think it has slightly changed. In the beginning few years, we had high draft picks. That's the first easy way to identify a shift. And the good thing of having high draft picks is there's some very good talent in the college game that you can acquire. The bad thing about having high draft picks is that usually means you've had a bad season the year prior. Personally, I would always take having a lower draft pick and having a good season where we finish high, which is how we have done for the last 5 years. So that's one thing that's proven quite challenging to continually get the right players from the draft is you usually need the highest draft picks. Secondly, we also started our academy in 2015 with only one age group at U14. So in the first few years, we knew there wasn't going to be a matriculation of talent that was ready to impact our first team. But I think there has been a shift now with our academy producing players regularly that are so talented and we want to provide pathways and opportunities for. But there has been a slight decrease in our activity in and around the draft in the last couple of years. Having said that, you only need to look at Daryl Dike as the perfect example right now of there being really some very, very talented players that still come out of the college game and something we pay tremendous amount of attention to. And in terms of the US market, I think it's something that we track and follow, and it's about trying to find the right value. You know, in MLS, you have a certain amount of dollars to spend, and trying to spend them as effectively and efficiently as possible is always the aim. It's not a perfect science, but it's about trying to find the right value. We used a couple of examples in Tony and Ben and Sean where we've been able to find really good players who have impact our team, and the value for those acquisitions has been right. And something, again, we are constantly looking at. Something also that we've seen in this offseason is acquiring US talent from abroad in Alfredo and Chris Gloucester, players who are domestic but have had careers in Europe particularly, and getting them on their journey either back or into MLS is another really interesting market for us, and something that we're excited to take advantage of.
Well, let's talk about some of the signings more specifically, and we'll do it with the most recent one. And you talked about high draft picks versus lower draft picks. You signed a third-round draft choice, Vuk Latinovic, which is somewhat rare. So here you have signed a player out of the draft. So tell us a little bit about Vuk. We saw him close up in the last two scrimmages.
Yeah, Vuk's been really impressive when he joined us in camp, and has played a role in I think all the preseason games so far. Played regularly as centre back, fitted into the group really, really well. Someone we think has potential to play how Ronnie would like centre backs to play, and fully deserved and earned an opportunity to earn a contract and continue on with us.
Let's take two of your signings together, Malta Amundsen and Chris Gloucester, the 20-year-old U.S. Youth International. Together because they both play on the left side of the field, left backs, wing backs, full backs, and you also have Gudmundur Thorarinsson, who has had a very good preseason. So let's talk about each one of them, but it also seems like you have a bit of a jam at that left back area.
Yeah, so I'll take both Malta and Chris individually first. And so Malta was a player that we've been tracking for a while. We really, really liked. Obviously, with Mata leaving, we knew we needed to add a left back. We wanted to add someone that had a balance between attacking and defending qualities, could be really solid defensively while still offering quality going forward. And we really like Malta. He's been a player that I think, unfortunately, has had a very long visa process and only arrived the week before our first game. But he's someone we were really excited to add and feel like he's going to be a fantastic fit in our group and what we were looking for out of that position. Chris Gloucester is the type of situation where, given some of the moves we made, we had salary cap flexibility, where is a player who we think has fantastic potential, very, very young still, only 20 years old. He's had a couple of years in Europe, was a standout for the U17, U20 national team, played at U20 World Cup, and was a really impressive player and someone that we've really, really liked and we think will be a really good player for us. You know, that opportunity came about and we put ourselves in a position where we could take advantage of it by having the flexibility to be able to bring him in. And so the opportunity to acquire very, very talented, high potential young American prospects is one that we always want to be able to take advantage of. And sometimes in MLS with a salary cap, it's not possible. This time it was, and so we wanted to make sure we acted on it and brought Chris into the group, and you know, somebody that we're really excited to work with and hopefully help on his kind of development track. And for us, competition in every area of the pitch is hugely important. It's how you get the most out of players to compete for playing time. They'll push each other, as well as Goody, who has played left back in pre-seasons and, as you say, has had a very good pre-season. He's also more positionally flexible, played another couple of positions throughout his career. And I think having a group that strong is a real luxury for us, and we're really excited by it.
All right, let's move on to Alfredo Morales, who is on the older side, but certainly still in his prime at 30 years old. He'll turn 31 during the course of the season. But a guy with over 100 Bundesliga matches, so that doesn't happen by accident. Many have seen him perform with the U.S. men's national team. So what are your plans for him? What do you see?
When we looked at the midfield with obviously Alex leaving to join Austin, we think the world of James, Nico, Tony, Keaton, Gideon, you know, our current midfielders, we think really, really highly of. However, we did feel like if we could add someone that would add some real experience, maybe a slightly older profile than we've traditionally been recruiting in the last few windows, that would be something that we really wanted to add. And I think we also wanted to add a slightly different skill set in midfield. And I think Alfredo just ticked all the boxes for us. He's got phenomenal experience at playing at really high levels, is a fantastic personality, character, is a slightly different type of midfielder than our other group in that he's a really aggressive ball winner, good technical quality as well, but will really help us bring a different dynamic and give Ronnie different options to play in midfield. And so I think we've all been encouraged by his addition, and he's a fantastic person. And I think it's been a theme of a lot of the players that we've wanted to acquire this year is making sure we bring the right personalities and characters into our group that we feel really, really strong about, and the culture and environment that's been set. And I think Alfredo will absolutely add to that and bring his experience and his knowledge, and no doubt he will be helping us on the pitch. And then when we look at particularly the second half of the season and we're playing every 3 days for 3 months, it seems we're going to need a lot of depth and we're going to need a lot of players because everyone's going to have to contribute during that time.
And then you've talked about Thiago. Is there anything else you'd like to add about him?
Thiago's a really exciting player. Obviously only 20, as I say, you know, limited experience in senior football so far, but really excited to get him into New York. He's very quick, direct, attacking, wide player. Of course, plays a number 9. I think, again, when we look at the balance of the wingers that we have and the options we have up front, it was something that we really wanted to add someone that had more speed, could run in behind, and Thiago fits that for us. And so we're looking forward to getting him here. We know we've signed a lot of players from abroad. We know there's a transition period, particularly for young players, as they get used to MLS, the new country, all those things. But we'll work with him through that, and excited for what he can do and show on the pitch, both in the short and also the long term.
David, Graham Smith asks, do you think this roster is better than the roster you inherited as sporting director?
Yeah, so I think first thing is, you know, roster is never complete. Ours is not complete right now, and probably won't ever be. There'll always be changes that you'd like to make, and it's kind of a living, breathing organism, the players coming in and leaving. We've seen a tremendous amount of development from players who were on the roster kind of 14, 15 months ago, who have significantly improved over that time. And some of the new players, I think, will really add to the quality and the depth and the environment that we have at our club. So I think we would like to still add and have the capacity to still add another couple of players at the right time. But I think the roster is incredibly strong. I think we feel really, really good about the team we have, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform. Ultimately, we will see both this week and in coming weeks how the team settles in and how the players are doing. But we feel really confident about the group we have. There's
a segment of the soccer population that might feel that a marquee player, you know, a big name player who we know would also be financially would need a huge financial investment. How do you balance that part of it too? Because maybe that helps in a marketing standpoint, filling up the seat standpoint, and even the standpoint of what they produce on the field.
So I'm very fortunate that I get to look through a lens of what's right for the team on the field. Constantly speaking with Brad and the team in the front office, but the desire here is to put the best possible team we can on the field that can compete and win trophies. And if we feel like the best way to do that is to acquire a marquee player who can make an impact, then we will go and make that recommendation. We are seeing far less of those kind of marquee talents, those big names, particularly the older players, coming to MLS. They're happening far less frequently now than they did even 3, 4, 5 years ago.
All right, David. Joseph says, as the team is lacking a USL affiliate and a team-owned USL team, it seems years away for that as it's attached to a stadium being constructed. How will the team properly address the lack of playing time for its younger players?
It's a really important topic and something we spent a lot of time working on, for years, but particularly in the last 14, 15 months, as we look at particularly the talent we're producing from our academy and the jump between our academy and first team and how we can most effectively bridge that gap. As you say, the relationship between MLS and USL is slightly altering. And so we're trying to assess that landscape and what is the best way to enter that landscape. From my perspective, I would like it to happen as soon as possible and us to have a team playing in a competition where we can get minutes for our younger players. The challenge with the USL affiliation route that some teams have gone down is really we would love to have the best of both worlds is to have our players here training with our first team every day and getting that wonderful development experience from training with our team, but then playing senior games at the weekend. When you have an affiliation or the players depart, they obviously means they can't train with our first team. And so we've been constantly trying to find that balance and find the right moments, as it was last year for Justin, to go out and get some experience playing games. That at that point for him, it was more important that he went out and got games versus having the training environment in and around our first team. So there are challenges with it, but it's something that I do believe is really important, and I'm hoping that we can find a solution for this as soon as possible. I think everyone on our side is committed to making sure that we can address this and find a solution in whatever situation that would look like from USL or MLS's new competition that they're looking to create to have that opportunity for our young academy players.
Right, David, the next question is from Ethan Zombeck. What is the process for how you would sell players abroad? What is the biggest factor for how long James Sands stays in an NYCFC jersey? And when he signed that 5-year contract, I know there was a caveat in that release. It might have been your quote that there's an agreement that if there's an opportunity for James, you're going to try to help him out.
I'll answer probably both questions separately. How long will James stay? I think the factors involved in that will be primarily around the opportunities that James has. The clubs that come in and want to acquire him and want to take him to Europe, and whether, firstly, for James, whether he believes those opportunities are right for him and his career. We work really closely with James throughout his time with the club to try and optimize and continue his development. And him signing the contract, I think, was him showing his trust in us that we will help to continue to develop his career. And when those opportunities arise for him to go to Europe, we will do everything we can to help him. First and foremost, it will be whether James has an opportunity from a club who's looking to take him that he feels is right for the next step in his career and is offering something that will help him develop his career that perhaps we are not able to offer at that point in time. And of course, then the situation will be that we'll have to find an opportunity that we also think is right for the club. But primarily, we want to provide players opportunities to develop, improve their careers, develop as professionals, and then at the right time, as we've seen with Jack Harrison or Yangel Herrera and other players who have, Joe Scally, have departed us, when those opportunities come up, we want to support them in their journeys to play at places that match their career ambitions. What's the process for selling a player abroad is it can be incredibly complex and it can be incredibly simple. Sometimes you have players that are so in demand that you have lots of teams knocking on your door and making offers, and it's simply about trying to find and negotiate the best possible price you can and allowing the player the choice of which clubs to go to. But we are certainly seeing over the last 12 to 18 months a lot more focus from European clubs on MLS as a whole, on our club particularly, but in the talent from the US that exists here. As we see more players and the more transfers that go from MLS to Europe, and those players compete at high levels and show what talent is in the league, we're starting to get a lot more interest and calls and people that are intrigued by the players, particularly the young players who are playing in MLS. So it's always a collaboration for a player to move abroad. There generally has to be at a minimum three parties that are comfortable with a transaction, which is the buying club, the selling club, and the player. If we can't make all of those three things fit, then a deal doesn't happen. And so there's a lot of work to make sure that can happen for a transfer to happen. But it's a very fun part of the job when you have talented young players and who are having interest from clubs abroad. It's a really exciting moment for the players and for us as a club to show what a good job we do in developing phenomenal young talent.
David, Michael Carey wants to ask, what is the long-term plan for the club over the next 5 to 10 years?
From my chair, I can really answer from a sporting perspective, and I think there's a number of plans. I think we are really invested in our academy, producing players that can compete in a first team, have careers potentially beyond, and go to Europe. Our player development and acquiring players that we can develop and improve and help along their journey. The long-term plan over the next 5 and 10 years is to compete and win as many trophies as we can. And that is the most simple answer that I can possibly give is, that's the ambition for everyone here. And hopefully 10 years from now and look back over the last 10 years and we've won a number of trophies over that time, developed players, I think we'll all feel very, very satisfied with the work that we've done. But the ambition and long-term plan is to continually compete for trophies. We know in MLS that's really challenging. The salary cap environment forces it to be really challenging for teams to sustain success for a long period, regularly qualify for playoffs, compete for titles. It's very, very difficult to do that year in and year out. And so that is absolutely the aim, where we can compete for titles regularly. But I want to be able to balance that along with developing players, improving players, and really having a focus on making sure we're producing players that can compete from our academy, signing players from abroad that we can develop and help in their journeys and careers.
David, in preseason, we saw a lot of young faces. You had academy kids there. They did well. Can you give us an idea of how you would rate the talent pool of the New York City FC Academy?
Yeah, it's always one of the best parts of preseason is seeing how the academy players handle the jump up into preseason and being with the first team every day, the training intensity. And so it was a really fantastic experience, especially when you consider that most of these boys are aged 14, 15, 16 years old. To see how they integrated into the group, first and foremost off the pitch, was phenomenal. And then the way they took on information, adapted to the speed of play, and got to experience our first team environment was really fantastic. So I think all did really, really well, and we were pleased with the development of everyone over that time and being able to give them that experience. The talent in NYCFC's academy is incredible. Honestly, I think we're very fortunate to be in the market we are, where there are so many good players, and something we talk about and something I'm fortunate enough to be able to see regularly is some of the really talented young players who are younger, maybe haven't had an opportunity yet with our first team, but are developing in a really great way. And so we're lucky we're in New York and we have such good talent, and our job is to make sure we're continuing to maximize their potential, maximize their development, and ultimately then when those players are ready, give them opportunities to come into our first team environment. But the academy and the work that the academy staff do, and the academy parents and families and players is really amazing.
And there's this trend, interesting, in this MLS Media Week, one statistic that was disclosed, 20% of all first-team players on senior rosters in MLS are homegrown players. So the trend is really younger now.
For something that is a long-term investment and requires kind of really consistent investment over a prolonged period to produce players, we're still very early in that cycle, I think. And so, academies are only 13 years old. You are now seeing the amount of players produced across MLS, and New York is one area, but across MLS is really significant. There's some fantastic talent that's playing in MLS, that has played in MLS and now moved on and will move on to play in Europe in the future. And so it's a really exciting development for the league.
Your own academy, let's talk a little bit about how they handled the pandemic. Such a difficult time for young players, youth players across the country. So what have they been up to, those guys, and how has it affected player development?
Yeah, I think it's something that has been an enormous challenge, like it has been for everybody. And I think, We all experienced the same lockdown, back in March and April, where it was impossible to get the players out onto a pitch. And so going through video conference sessions and doing things at distance and lots of home workouts and these types of things. And so it's been a real challenge for the academy. Typically, we would travel across the country at the very minimum, take teams abroad to go on trips and tours, and all of that's had to stop. We've been limited in the amount of travel that we can do, and it's required our academy constantly being creative, our academy players and parents being willing and adapting to things that are changing in the environment, while we try and find the best possible way to continue their development, even given the challenges and restrictions that we have right now. So we're certainly looking forward to a return to normalcy in the academy world, where we can travel more and take our teams on trips and give them experiences where we can play other teams. But I've been really impressed with all the work the academy done. It's such an unseen and often unsung part of every club. A lot of it's behind the scenes and don't get the credit they deserve for the amount of work that goes on to produce the players. And it's every day working to produce the players that we will eventually see in our first team. When we look at an Andres or, as our newest homegrown, and the amount of work that's gone in behind the scenes to get him to the level he's at today, both from firstly Andres and his family, and then from our staff, is really, really incredible, and something that deserves so much credit and attention across the league, but particularly in our academy.
How do you attain a blend of acquired players and then the developing players, the homegrown players? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's a really tricky part, and getting the balance right is not always easy. I think we feel really good about the group we have here, and so we know and have added new players, and I'm sure we'll add more new players to our group. But trying to get the balance right between the players we have and providing them opportunities that they've earned and deserved, and to play in our first team to develop, along with new acquisitions, is a constant kind of battle, really, in trying to get the balance right. I think we feel really, really good about the group we have and players who will be hugely impactful for us this year. Most supporters are most interested in the new signings and new acquisitions into the group. And sometimes it gets forgotten about the players who develop, a James Sands, a Keaton Parks, Tati, Jesus Medina last year, and how those players have really developed and improved, something not always seen in a transfer window. But it's a hugely important part of building a sustainable club, is making sure that we develop the players we have. And one of the most pleasing parts of my job is when we see those players develop and improve their performances over time. And it's something we've seen a lot over the last couple of years, and I'm looking forward to seeing that continue.
One final question from a supporter. It's Cameron Tancredi. He's got one for you. NYCFC has failed in every knockout competition we have played in. How do you build a roster that can succeed in tough tournament games against top teams rather than a team that has been just successful in the regular season?
Yeah, really good question. Something that we talk about, think about a lot. We see from the amount of teams who win the Supporters' Shield and go on to win MLS Cup, it doesn't happen very often. It's very, very rare, particularly in MLS and the knockout style of the playoffs, that a team is both the Supporters' Shield and MLS Cup winner. It's a really challenging problem. I think over the last few years, we've made sure that there was a real focus on having depth and quality across the team. I think even if we look at last year with the injuries we suffered and Mitri leaving in the middle of the year, to maintain our performance level and the results that we got, even despite all those, shows that the depth that we had available to us, that was really quite impressive. However, we haven't had the success that we would like when it comes to the playoffs. There's no doubt about that. Some of the data that we look at from over the last 5 years, I think we have the highest average points per season in MLS, and the 5 teams that are behind us have collected 7 of the 10 major trophies, Supporters' Shields or MLS Cup, in that time spell. It's been a large part of the offseason is trying to address that and think through, how do we build the squad, how do we build the environment where we can compete as we have done and being close to winning Supporters' Shield or finishing high up in the table. But then when it comes down to those playoff games, we're ready and have a team that can win those games. I think also, it comes down to trying to put your best quality performance of the season on the field in those 4 or 5 playoff games. And that's something where I don't think we've done that over the last number of years. We've had very, very good games and we've had good seasons. We managed to put very good seasons together where we've had good finishes. However, when it really comes down to playoff games, I think we haven't yet put our best performance as a whole together on the field. And I actually thought the performance against Orlando was one of our better playoff performances. we were facing a goalkeeper who had a fantastic day that maybe we could have scored 1 or 2 more goals. I think there is a number of factors, and it is a very complex thing, but the intensity of those games is different. I think teams that are extremely together, have the right environment, the right culture, I think will go a long way in those games.
All right, David. Well, in the past 10 years, there have been 7 different MLS Cup champions. So what are the chances of NYCFC becoming the 8th different team in 11 years? And what are you most looking forward to this season?
I'm looking forward to seeing the team back in competitive action again after a long off season. I'm looking forward to seeing the progress and development of young players and how they improve. I'm looking forward to seeing Ronnie's second season and how the group adapts and continues to adapt to what he's asking from them. But the simple and obvious answer and truthful answer is I'm most looking forward to having fans back in stadiums, and particularly our fans at Yankee Stadium. For anyone who watched the games last year, the games felt different. There's something missing when fans weren't in the stadiums. And so the thing I'm most looking forward to is, a team celebrating and having the atmosphere back in the stadiums again as soon as we can. The beauty of MLS and the parity that exists is there's 27 teams sitting here in week 1 of the season, and everybody thinks they can win and only one will. I think we have as good a chance as we ever have done. I think we have the team in place that can be successful, along with flexibility to add new players to the group that we've already got and we believe in. I think our chances are fantastic. The expectation, as always, is to compete to win all the trophies we have available to us this year. And that's what I'm looking forward to. That's the group's mentality. That's the coaching staff's mentality. And so, I'm really encouraged and excited to see the team and as we progress through the season.
David Lee, the sporting director for New York City FC. David, thank you so much for taking the time to take us inside, sharing your thoughts, and it was really wonderful to hear your thoughts on all these different matters. And good luck this season.
Thank you, Glenn.